Welcome out to It's All Been Done Radio Hour. This week we have a brand new Meet the Cast episode. Jerome Wetzel sits down with our awesome new narrator, Darren Esler. So we're going to get to know him here in just a minute. But first, we want to thank Circle 270 Media, which this podcast is part of, and as always, our amazing host site, It's All Been Done Presents. You can go to IABDpresents.com to check out podcasts, videos, written work. There's a little bit of everything. Our next live show is Saturday, January 9th, and will most likely be streaming online as all of our recent shows have been. You can get tickets at itsallbeendoneradiohour.com or donate $2 to our Patreon for access to not only this upcoming show, but also past shows and videos and bloopers. There's a lot of stuff. Go check it out at patreon.com/IABD. And now, let's get to know Darren Esler, the narrator of It's All Been Done Radio Hour.
Welcome out to another It's All Been Done Radio Hour. This week we have a Meet the Cast. It's been a while because we haven't had any new cast members in a while. We got through the whole cast from earlier, but now we have new cast members. So today I'm talking to Mr. Darren Esler, who is the narrator. Darren, give us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. My parents moved to outside of Chicago called Lake Zurich. Till I was about 5. Then we moved back to a little town in western PA called Saxonburg, Pennsylvania. And so I lived there basically grew up there when I was 5 till I was 18. Then I moved to Columbus, Ohio, to go to DeVry University. I had a scholarship to DeVry. That didn't work out. I didn't like it, so I didn't do that. So I quit that and went into stand-up, and then from stand-up to improv.
What made you decide you wanted to be a stand-up?
I was 21 years old. I was working at Chi-Chi's as a waiter. And a friend of mine, he was very funny, and he said, there's an open mic night. And what was it called? I can't remember the play. I don't think it's open anymore. But he went down, and I went and to support him and watched him. And I'm watching all these guys, all these people get up and do stand-up. They're amateurs doing stand-up. And then the host was a professional. And I'm like, I could do that. I could totally do that. Not realizing that it's actually amateurs versus professionals is a totally different world. But so I started going to open mics, meeting other comics. I don't consider what I did as stand-up comedy as much, because stand-up comics, when you watch a good one, it is a craft. They work at it. It is constant work. It is they're honing. There's some that are just natural at it, but it's a one-person play, basically. The good ones, the ones that do it well. They'll put the whole set together and if you know what you're looking for, if you're just watching it, you're just like, oh, wow. But if you're looking at it and you're breaking down the really good stand-ups like Seinfeld and Carlin and there was a structure to what they laid out, and they were, referencing things earlier, and it took time. They had to work on it. They had to write the material, go in front of an audience. And I knew a lot of comics who did that. They worked a lot harder. I didn't really work hard on it. I just went up and I was just doing stuff, and I couldn't remember. I had trouble. I didn't take the time to memorize everything, so I would kind of fly by my seat of my pants, and I did okay. Like, I did well in front of, like, I did, let's see, the biggest crowd I was in front of 500 people.
Oh my goodness.
But they weren't really there to see us. That's a long story. That was at a dance club out on Bryce Road, and it was for a Chris Logston. Do you remember Chris Logston?
I do.
I don't know if he's still around or not, but he's been around forever. He was around back then. But there was this guy, he came and he got all the comics from an open mic, and he put together this thing before. This is one of my first real stand-up things. And but the crowd was there to see Chris. They weren't there to see us. They didn't care. They're like talking and yelling. So it was a total bomb fest. But you learn from that. You learn from bomb fest. Then then you do like all these bars. There's the Lobby out on the east side. I lived out on Bryce Road area, And so there was a lot of East Side gigs I went to. So that's why I did stand up, but I don't consider myself a stand up. But what I liked, but that's why I got into improv, was being on stage by yourself. And now I kind of want to get back into it, but, but in improv, you're with other people. And I've always been better playing off of what other people are doing or saying and coming back with something rather than reading a written. I'm not good at telling jokes, like bar jokes. My brother is great at it. I can't tell a bar. I just can't do it. Like two guys walk into a bar, it just doesn't trigger my brain.
And the third one ducks. Yeah, I got it.
The improv was you're with friends. It's different every night, and it kept my ADD brain going. And so I went from I did stand up, I would say 3 or 4 years. I got a chance to audition for MCTD, Midwest Comedy Tool and Die, and didn't make it. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. So I didn't make the first time, but then I started, I knew nothing about improv. So I started like looking it up and kind of reading a little bit about it. And then there was another audition. It was a little smaller audition. It was a personal invitation audition. I got invited. And we trained with them for, I want to say 13 to 16 weeks. And then at the end, there was a final audition and they picked from the group. And I made it in barely. There was some disagreements, but they let me in. Then from there, we were the MC Squared, it was called. We would cover the home Columbus gigs while the main group would, when they were on tour, when they couldn't be in town, because they had weekly gigs they had to cover. So MC Squared would perform, and it was 2 shows a week. Plus we did 2 workshops. They brought in, world-class mimes to teach us physicality. They did a really good job of training us. One of the main cast members would always stay back and train us for the week and perform in the show with us. So I learned a ton from those guys. The group of us, we got to, and they were on the road a lot. So we kind of got our own following. I actually got to tour with the big group several times. We went to Michigan, up through Ann Arbor, but there were a bunch of stops, and it would go like, night to night. It was basically get in a van with everybody. And then it was like Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday were 2 shows each. And then we did a swing through Western Ohio down to Kentucky to St. Louis, and then we came back up. You're with your friends. You're not making a lot of money at all, but you're only working an hour a night, and you don't work till the evening. And you're with your friends, and they gave us a per diem of like $10 a day, and then and you got room and board, like that. You got to stay in a hotel. That was part of how they paid the groups. We got, of course, being in our 20s, we knew everything. So we decided, hey, we're tired of splitting half the money with these guys. We kind of felt a little disrespected for several reasons, but now we're like friends with all of them. We were young and stupid. And so we split off and formed our own group called Slipshot Theater. And we got our own gigs and got to keep all that big money.
Improvers, they live large. In those days, did Columbus have a big improv scene? Were there a lot of other groups?
No, there was MCTD. And like I said, they were on the road a lot, so they weren't really in town a lot. There was the Outpatients, which one of their members, they'd stopped performing at that point. They were Andy Man, Phil Porter, Michael Palermo. Phil Porter actually came and joined us in Slipshot because they had stopped doing things. But other than that, there really weren't any that was not like it is now.
Now there's dozens of improv troupes always performing, doing festivals and competitions and all kinds of stuff.
It was totally different. We were like I said, we had to be invited and get through auditions, and now it's basically if you pay the money, you can be an improv group. if you pay and I don't know how the Nest is doing with all this stuff being closed.
They're doing a lot of virtual shows. The Nest is our local improv theater, founded by a couple from Chicago. Were they Second City, Chicago?
They were, what's the other name of it? IO? I think they were IO.
Columbus has a lot of active people doing theater and improv and stuff. But once you're in that community, I feel like everybody kind of knows who everybody else is. Like it's not so big that you're lost in it. There's so many people participating and moving around between groups and doing so many different things. I mean, that's part of Radio Hour. We've had, as of today, like 94, 95 guest stars, but I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of the local talent here. There's so many, there's hundreds of more people that we know and have already like come in contact with that we could absolutely include in our show in the future. So we're not going to run out of guests anytime soon.
Oh, I know. That's why when I, with my podcast, Squatchmasters, it's like, I could have so many guest stars and there's so many, like you said, there's so much talent.
So much.
You're like, okay, I gotta. Yes, I actually moved back to Pennsylvania in 2000. I had a baby coming. My parents wanted me to come back and work for them, be the office manager for their company because they were going to retire, and my brother was kind of taking over. And that went okay until about 2008, when everything went to hell. And everything went
thanks,
to hell.
Obama. No, I'm kidding. Kidding, obviously.
I saw a thing that Michelle says that to him all the time, and that cracks me up.
She should. I mean, it's too perfect not to.
She drops a plate or something.
But yeah, so the recession kind of hurt.
Yes,
family business
went out of business. The family business went out of business, and then I was in scramble mode because they'd run out of money. And I was getting unemployment while still working for them because they couldn't pay me because they're your family. You can't quit your family.
Sure.
If there's anyone else, or like, we can't pay, you'd be like, okay, see you later.
Right.
And the little town I lived in was called Meadville. There was not a lot of job. If you weren't it's a tool and die shop town. And if you weren't a tool and die person, we sold tool and die machines, but I didn't know how to, I wasn't a tool and die maker. That's what my dad did. He back in the 40s, he was one of the first ones. And I was like, there's no jobs here that pay anything. So I was in desperation mode. I went to try and sell cars for 3 months. That's a whole disaster.
Yeah.
But I lasted 89 days because on the 90th they had to pay me a hiring bonus because it's basically they got you in to sell to your friends and so then I'm like, oh, now I'm really desperate. So I went to become a door-to-door insurance salesman.
Oh,
wow. Desperate. That is desperate.
That's yeah.
But that I got into an actual real insurance company where I was able to make some money enough to, to raise, my family, raise my son. And I'd come back to Columbus for, like I said, a couple geezers of improv shows and visit some friends, and everybody kept going, you got to move back here. So it just kind of kept in the back of my mind. And I'm like, Well, right before that, I started the Squatchmasters.
Right. I was going to ask, were you doing anything creative for most of that time? Or basically between improv and Squatchmasters, you were just doing the day job raising the kid?
Exactly. Yeah. It was not a lot of creativity. There weren't a lot of creative people to interact with there. It was kind of like a black hole of I even I stopped making jokes a lot of times because people would just stare at me. They wouldn't. But they say Columbus ranked. Last I saw, Columbus ranked as one of the most intelligent cities in the world. Yeah, and if you move away, it really sinks in.
Yeah,
you try to have conversations with people, and you realize they don't understand what I'm talking about. So you kind of it drains on it really wears on you. It drains.
So is that why you created Squatchmasters? You were just so
that was my wife was going through some physical. She was really sick, and things were just bad. And we started with there's a friend of ours, and I'm going to say his name, Ernest Klein. I was his roommate with Matt McDonald, who's part of Squatchmasters, and we were in Mike Cornell, who I mentioned earlier, we were in his house. It was the Comedy Castle. I was in the basement. Ernie was on the middle floor. Matt was in another room, and Mike was in the attic. And we had.
And this is the Ernest Cline. This isn't.
Yes,
for the listener benefit. This is the author of Ready Player One.
Correct. Yes, yeah. And I forgot we were doing. We did a trivia show on WCBE. It was on Sunday mornings at 7:30 in the morning, and it was called The Informants. And we did sketches and trivia, and people could call in and join join teams. They would just say a team name. And we got sponsors and prizes and stuff. And that was fun. We did that, I want to say 3 or 4 years. So yeah, so that was the Ernie Cline. He was our roommate. So he became a huge success, which we knew about, and obviously, and he contacted us. He wanted to do a podcast, a website. And so we started doing that. It was called it was huge, big success. It was huge. Well, he was going to be a big part of it, and we were, it was supposed to be like nostalgia about the 80s, which he really is. He's all about all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
So we did that we did a test podcast, and he forgot to record it correctly, so that didn't record. Then we did. Then he couldn't make it. That was right when the movie started coming out. And so he's like, oh, I got to go. I can't be around. I got to go to Comic-Con and hang out with Spielberg and all this stuff. So we're like, okay. And then, so we're watching him, and like, you look, and he's on Comic-Con hugging Spielberg. And I'm like, you know what? He's not coming back for a long time. This project isn't going to really go anywhere. Because if it's just a bunch of guys talking about geeky stuff, there's already 400,000 other shows like that.
Really? Name 100.
And I'm like, with his name attached, it could really go somewhere. If it's not,
you'd have a hard time breaking through. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, so of course I went, but I wanted to do something, and I was exposed to how it was done, and I decided I was going to do my own podcast with just me. And so that's why the first episode is just me. And then I realized, I really should get some people involved. I'm not that good. And so then I got my friend George Caliotis, who's putting together a nice little resume himself of acting credits. So he did the second episode, and I like the comparison between the first and second episode. To me, was so stark that I was like, hey, why don't, it was supposed to be a one-off. He was supposed to just be on once.
Sure.
And I'm like, why don't you just I'll trap you and you will be part of the show forever. And he's like, oh, whatever. He didn't care. So it grew.
He plays Vlad the vampire to your
Zeke,
main character. It's a Zeke. Yes.
Down for
the Sasquatch hunter.
The Sasquatch hunter. My friend Matt, who did stand up. I saw him do stand up long time ago. He did Improv with us too, and I've known him forever. He was one of our roommates at the Comedy Castle. I started getting him involved he's a brilliant writer, like just over the top brilliant writer. He keeps me focused. My writing style is I write everything that comes to my head, and I just write it, and I get meandering, and he's more like, okay, this doesn't make sense to this, and he keeps me in line. So I got him on as I'm like, why don't you would you like to do it all the time? So then he does some characters, and he helps write a lot as far as, like I said, honing me in mostly. So with George and him, it kind of came together, and then we're working on an animated version.
Ooh, that'll be really fun.
Animated pitch for it, because the one guy wants to pitch it to his people in LA, his LA people. So, but that's taking a long time, longer than I thought it would. So our show is kind of on like a hiatus but I do want to, I just had an idea for a one-off, like we had a one-off pandemic special. And
you did 2 really good complex seasons that I hope you'll follow up with a third.
I want to get back to it. I do.
So I was looking at my past messages while we were talking, because I've been a fan of Squatchmasters since almost the beginning. I thought I had been there at the beginning, but I wasn't, because Joe Teeters messaged me on March 15th, 2018 and said, hey, my friend Darren has a podcast. Check this out. And he said some other things about you as well. But Joe Teeters, local performer here.
Oh, yeah.
In Columbus. And it looks like as of March 15th, you had 2 episodes out already. And so I remember I listened to those first 2 and I reached out to you. I don't remember what I said to you at the time, but something about like Joe had basically said, you do a podcast, Darren does a podcast. Why don't you reach out to him and see if you can help him out or something?
Yeah, it was Joe. It was Joe because I contacted Joe. I'm like, Joe, because I was thinking of trying to get the Nest as a sponsor or something. And he's like, no. You want to talk to these guys. You want to talk to the IABD. and Joe,
we got all the cash to throw your way. Since we don't pay anybody for anything.
And I'm very remiss if we're talking about improv in Columbus and not mentioning Joe, who is the godfather of improv in Columbus. I call him that, but
Joe is at the top of my guest star list of people we haven't had yet, but I really want to get on the show.
Joe's the best.
Well, at the time back in spring 2018, IABD was trying to build a network, which we've since decided to just focus on what we're making ourselves. Yeah. But I had reached out to you and said, hey, you want Squatchmasters to be on the network? I love your podcast. And for some reason you agreed. Why did you decide to put Squatchmasters on the IABD network?
Well, it was, I wanted to get Columbus-based talent involved. And that was one of the original things I wanted to do. And you're a Columbus-based network. So I was like, oh, and in the back of my mind, I thought I was moving back to Columbus here. I think even at the time I said I'm planning on it.
You mentioned it, yeah, and then
it just wasn't
happen. It didn't happen, and I was like, when are you coming back?
Yeah, and then it got to the point where I was like, I got to get out of here, and I came out here a couple months before I moved. I drove by where I actually live now, and I was like, I don't want to live there. It doesn't look that good, but it's in the area of town I used to live in, and so. And then it became like I got a job. I was originally going to get another job here that I used to work at, but I got this other job, and it was just get out. And so, so we moved, and now we're here. And,
you moved to the city where IABD was located, which you had villainized in your series, Squatch Passion.
That's right.
To make a shadowy organization. And I know we had talked about you wanted me to come in and voice a character with the shadowy organization.
Yes. You're going to be, and that could still very well happen.
Good. I would love to. I'd still love to do it.
Impresario.
I miss Squatchmasters. I've listened to every episode and absolutely love it. So I can't wait for more, and I'm happy to participate if you want me. But yeah,
awesome.
So you came. We knew you were coming back in town, and immediately, we'd already been in communication for a while. So I'm like, we got to meet this guy. Got to actually see you. We met was it the Columbus Podcast Awards was the first time we actually met in person?
Yeah, I think that was the first time we met in person. We chatted back and forth, but not
a number of times, emails and stuff.
You and Sam was there. Was Sam there?
Yes. Sam was there. Nick was there. A few of us were there. And Dino, our mutual friend, Dino,
yes.
Who is a great character in Squatchmasters.
Yes. Getting him, because we knew him from back in the old improv stand-up days, and he would, we would meet at the Doob after shows, and that was when he was kind of dating Stacy, and no one was supposed to know. I was like, I don't know, would he do it? I don't, because I wanted to do a Columbus-based monster, and that came up. One of the old MCTD guys on Facebook actually said, "What about Dino Tripodis?" And I'm like, well, would he do it? And then George has known him even longer. They're from the same hometown. So I asked him, he said yes, unbelievably. And then I'm like, okay. I was all nervous when he first came in. And then now it's like, I text him. I haven't done it for a while, but I text him because we're both Steeler fans and text each other. And whiskey and Steelers. That's our whiskey fans and Steelers. So we text each other about whiskey and the Steelers and stuff. But he's been great. I know he was up for the narrator position.
He was, he guest narrated with us a couple of times.
Yeah.
When our regular narrator Chris was out, and he's excellent. So when Chris decided to leave, of course, we talked to Dino. He's a busy guy. He's got so much going on.
Yeah, he does.
No surprise he wasn't available, but you and I had talked about wanting you to get involved in the show, and you had mentioned wanting to get involved in the show. And I think we talked a number of different ways. Hadn't settled on anything yet, but I know you were interested. And you also guest narrated once before we named a new narrator. When Dino wasn't available, you were backup after Dino. Well, we had Kathy Ranella from WCB a couple of times as well, and she did a great job. But yeah, so obviously we invited you to take over for Chris because you had done it, you liked it, and I know most of the troupe didn't know you, but I felt like I had a relationship with you and knew your style and your talent. And obviously I'm like, this guy makes this great comedy podcast. I want him in our show doing funny things for us. Why did you decide to sign up for this show that ekes out your time and does not give you anything in return?
Well, it's a like I said, when I was in Meadville, there was really no creative outlet. They did have a local improv group, but I didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to do it because there's a college there, but I didn't. I was older. But it's a creative outlet that working with creative people is. I enjoy that. I love doing it. It's. I don't know. You're doing something. You're
sure.
I don't know.
Month in and month out, we're doing it all the time.
And working, and there's so many talented people. Like when I guess, especially it's when you're, I don't know what, but live, it really comes through.
Oh, I so miss doing
even more
live.
Than when you see it live, you're like, wow, there's a lot of talent. And
I feel like the Zoom has really given us a chance to focus on some great performances in the face that you don't necessarily get through the podcast and live, and yet the energy isn't the same. And I really miss all being in the same room together. You actually joined the troupe, a month before we went online for the pandemic?
Yeah.
Did you even get a chance to get to know anybody?
Not a lot. Like, I think I know you best, and then Sam.
Sure.
And then I've talked to some of the others, but not like real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not.
And on Zoom, we don't have those like chances to socialize before and after rehearsal and stuff.
Right.
We've tried to like leave the cameras on, but it doesn't last very long, and it's not the same. I'm looking forward to when we get back in the theater, you like getting to know more of this group, because there's so many people doing so many different things in this group. And of course, this has been a big transitional year because we've lost some cast members. We're getting some new cast members. You weren't the noob for long. We've already got another newbie after you. I know. So we're going to vote on another one this weekend. So there are probably some more Meet the Casts coming.
That's show business.
Well, the other that we've added, Sam Clemens, he got to perform with us in person like 10 times before the pandemic because he was a frequent guest star.
Oh, wow.
And Ashley Collins, who is also close to being eligible to join the troupe, was also a frequent guest star and performed with us a bunch. So even though you're not the newest cast member, they already have those in real life relationships. Yeah, the real life hangouts and chemistry. How do you feel it's been going with the Zoom shows?
It's going well. I mean, it is, I hate this phrase, but it is what it is. I think the way it's set up, what we're doing, it's a little tricky with, it's hitting the video and the mute, and sometimes the button doesn't work. So the timing can be a little bit weird.
There's a lot more delay between lines. It takes longer to do the same size script.
But that's just part of the deal, nobody asked for this. We're not doing it by choice. We're doing what we can. So
it's nice because it exposes us to a bigger audience. We have more people tune into the live streams than we did in
really?
theater. Well, yeah, because
cool.
It's easier when you don't have to leave your living room and there's other theater shows going on to compete. But yeah, I still think our show needs to be in front of a live audience if at all possible. And as soon as this thing's over, we'll be back in the theater.
It's a different feeling when you see the singers singing and how good they are and things like that.
Yeah, we can't even really do the music that well. Like we're doing a lot of lip syncing, and we've done a couple new original songs, but it's been one person in a room with a track.
That's what makes it hard. And doing things talking over each other can get drowned out, and
you can't do it.
Limitations on what you can do, but we're doing what we can.
I usually ask people what their favorite part is they've played. You have played a couple other parts from the narrator.
That's right.
Instead, I'll say, what's been your favorite part of being in the show so far?
I don't know. I like Universe Journey. I kind of have a little character going there where I'm kind of snarky towards the guy. That's fun. That's fun. So I would say probably that. And I do like getting to audition on.
Yeah. You've played a few other roles. Our previous narrator, Chris Allen, who is still the podcast editor, so he's still in the troupe. He's still around.
Cool.
He hasn't like gone away. He's just not performing with us every month anymore. But he wasn't interested in playing too many other roles. He played a couple other roles, and I thought he did very well. In Universe Journey, he played Hugh Grappa's mother. But yeah, he didn't go out for the roles, and you've already auditioned pretty regularly and been cast. I really liked you as one of the cop brothers in Private.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I like doing that voice.
Do you have any segment that you haven't really been in other than as the narrator that you want to get?
I don't know, all of them really.
Well, you haven't been around long enough to be like, I mean, some of the cast members are like, well, I've already been in this, so my goal skin to that other one. But with my personality and voice is probably Top Notch Tangler. That's good. That would be, I can see you fitting really well. You did excellent playing the Risky Rhymer for our anniversary.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
And you really matched Patrick Long, the original performer, who
I listened to him like, I get what he's doing. Yeah, he got money.
He got money, so we lost him. But so you were kind of last minute on that, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that, but I thought you did excellent.
Oh, thank you.
Do you think you're more comfortable imitating a character or creating something on your own?
Either one, really.
You like both?
Yeah. And like this upcoming, Nick sent me an audio email, and I was going to email him back an audio. Said okay, just some tips on. Well, the people will have to see. Well, it'll be. I don't know if it'll be out before. I don't know. There's an episode coming up, and there's some different voices.
Well, this Meet the Cast is going out, I believe, early January, and the podcast runs a year behind overall. Oh, okay. So anything we haven't performed is still quite a ways away on the podcast.
All right, so I'm not
even the Risky Rhymer. They haven't heard that. Actually, from where they're listening to the podcast right now, they'll have heard you guest narrate one episode, but have not heard any of the episodes. You've been the regular narrator. So this is a preview, everybody.
What's this guy do it?
Yeah. This is somebody that you're going to hear a lot on the podcast going forward. Do you think you might want to down the road get involved in other aspects of the production, writing, directing, anything like that?
Probably writing, directing. I still don't think I'm a good director, even though for my podcast, I need to be a little more assertive, but I have actually started to, buy some books on how to direct so you don't make the actors angry.
You should have seen how passive I was in year one. I've had to really learn how to run this group. We're lucky. Our show doesn't have a lot of ego. There's not a lot of room for somebody to be the star or the person that's in charge. And people that we've had one or two people in the past try to be more ego and run things, and they didn't last with the group because that's not the style of IABD. I like to say nobody's irreplaceable, including myself. We've got other people that could step in and write the show if they wanted to.
We're working on that.
We have a formal succession plan. If something happens to me, there are people named for each aspect of the show to take over. It's in writing and the appropriate parties have been notified. But that's what I'm saying. Nobody's irreplaceable. I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's in a good place. Excited to see.
You should be very proud of it. Very proud of it.
Excited to see where it goes now. What's your favorite segment so far, just from listening, watching?
Probably still Universe Journey.
It's everybody's favorite segment. And I feel like it's my fault because it's clearly my favorite segment. I don't hide. I don't pretend all my children are equal. What else did we not touch on yet about you? What do we need to know about Darren Esler?
An Aquarius. I like to
long walks on the beach.
On the beach. I never think of myself in terms of myself.
What are your hobbies? What are your interests?
I'm big into virtual reality right now. except I threw my back out Thursday and I haven't been able to do it. But this is Ernest Cline's old virtual reality set. He sent it to me.
And you turn it on, you go into Ready Player One. It's crazy.
There's a free Ready Player One game.
Ooh.
Somebody made. It's still in its infancy. It's going to be great. Like if you give it 10 years, if it goes at the pace it's going now, it's going to be terrifyingly realistic. It's like scary. It's getting like I also have an Oculus Quest, which is a wireless headset. And since I got it in April, they've introduced hand tracking, so you don't even need a controller. You can use your hands, voice control, a new Oculus Quest with twice the power. That's just in like 6 months. It's growing that fast, and it's growing in popularity. They're all selling out. I compare it right now to even like the Atari 2600 days, because the graphics are really cool, but they're not quite there. But I could just see, like I said, give it 5-10 years. But I used to be big into golf when I lived in Meadville. Golf was cheap, and I could drive out and we could golf anytime. But now here in Columbus, it's a little more of a challenge to go. It's a little more expensive, there's more people, too many people. That's the whole issue.
I mean, that's really Columbus. Our metro area is 2 million and counting. What's your favorite podcast to listen to?
IABD.
I was not fishing for a compliment there. I meant other than Radio Hour, Squatch.
Actually, probably still my brother and me.
That's a funny one.
They crack me up.
Yeah.
But sometimes I have to take a break because I get sick of them. You just do. It's not them. It happens with everything. You just get like, okay, I need a break. But luckily with podcasts, you can pick up right where you left off. And
sure.
But I was listening, and I don't listen as much as I did when I was traveling to work. That was where I did almost all my podcast listening. And as much as I complain about, I liked Conan O'Brien's show. I liked I listened to Dino's show.
Whiskey Business. Yep, I'm a subscriber, regular listener to that.
And you were a guest, and I was supposed to be a guest, but the pandemic.
I was a guest. That was delightful. I hope someday I can be a guest again. That was really fun.
What are the other ones I'd listen
to? Ever listen to Hello from the Magic Tavern?
Yes, that was one of my inspirations for doing Squatchmasters. There's so many episodes of that too. I'm
about halfway through the series.
There's some hilarious. There's just some laugh out loud moments.
There's so many good scripted ones right now too. Homecoming was a good one. Limetown.
Was it Wolf 3? I forget the number. See, my brain doesn't work. No, it's Wolf 359. And
they stole that from Star Trek, because Wolf 359 is the battle where Picard's Locutus and destroys all the ships.
I didn't know that.
Thieves.
But they're on like a space station, and then it's like a comedy.
If you like sci-fi comedy scripted or partially improv, Voyage to the Stars, which stars Janet Varney, who is a guest star in Radio Hour that you'll hear very soon and upcoming on the podcast. And she's also a member of the Thrilling Adventure Hour troupe. But she is on Voyage to the Stars with Felicia Day, Colton Dunn, and it's partially improv, but it's a spaceship, and they're going through the galaxy and accidentally committing genocide a lot. It's really funny. That's okay. I think we've had a good conversation here. I think we've got enough to edit into a podcast. So I appreciate you joining me and talking to the audience a little bit about yourself so they can get to know you.
Thank you.
And thanks for being part of the show. We're excited to have you on board. I'm excited. Anyway, I shouldn't speak for everybody. I mean, they all voted you in, but I shouldn't speak for everybody.
It's All Been Done Radio Hour, number 273, Meet the Cast, episode number 36, featured Darren Esler and Jerome Wetzel. Please check out our website, itsallbeendoneradiohour.com, and follow us on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at IABD Presents, and It's All Been Done Radio Hour has a separate page on Facebook. Have a great week.
It's All Been Done Presents.
Who's got the time?